Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Courageous Custody, Real Stories, Real Solutions, your weekly dose of empowerment and practical guidance. I am Renee Rodriguez, the creator of the Custody Blueprint.
And I'm Audra Tarfa, a level 2 internal family systems practitioner. So we understand the unique challenges that you face as protective parents in the courtroom. And our mission is to equip you with the strategic thinking and emotional support you need to navigate this difficult journey with strength and resilience.
So every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll go live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, bringing you real stories. Get inspiration and insight from stories about courageous parents who have walked in your shoes and emerged victorious in big ways and small, and expert advice. Get practical strategies from us to help you advocate for your children and manage your trauma as you go through your custody case.
Yeah.
So let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
A reminder that we are not giving legal advice or therapy.
Yes, and if you're feeling triggered, please step away, take care of yourself, and join us in the comments. So today's topic, how child support fuels a child's education journey beyond dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a topic that comes up often. I know this was a topic that was brought up to us. So really, we can just get started about what role does child support have in regards to a child's education? Renee?
Yeah, it's, I think if we're talking about education, we're talking about, myriad of things. I think if there are special needs or anything like that, then you have to go to court. You have to be able to prove how much all of the support, tools and support resources and people and places that you have in place for your child. What does that cost? What does that look like? And then really you have to fight for those types of costs to prove that they're needed. Because really, when it comes to education, there's sort of a base assumption that it's public school. And there's a mold for a child that fits public school. And granted, most children fit that mold, sure. Plenty of children do not. Additionally, there are some parents who would love to be able to put their children in private school for a variety of reasons, including some that I've mentioned. And I want to talk really quickly about that to say that tuition is a very, very difficult thing to get, generally speaking, in court if both parents are not agreeing to it. So I'm always a fan of saying, you have to go and you have to look for ways that the other parent has pushed for private school, has agreed to the special school, anything in writing, anything like that to show that they had some wish to contribute. That being said, we're all allowed to change our minds. And if you have all of that proof and then the parent comes in and says, never mind, I'm not going to pay tuition now that, you guys have split up, that's hard to fight. And so asking for it in child support is not something that can really happen. To be honest with you, we find that abusers are more than happy to agree to private school. They just say they can't afford it. And so they force the hand of the protective parent of putting them in the private school that they do know that is a best fit for them for whatever reason, and paying for it all themselves.
Yeah, and I swear it's the 3 words that you say all the time, but let it go. Because if the other one doesn't pay and our protective parents are stuck with the bill and then things are spread tight, that is unfortunately one of the areas in which they will have to let that private school go, or let that faith-based school private tuition go, or whatever it is. It oftentimes it will, you have to come up with alternative ways.
In fact, I would argue, when I talk about child support with my clients, I'm always telling them, do not treat the child support, do not depend on it, is what I say.
Yeah.
So I always recommend that they treat whatever child support they get as gravy, right? It's kind of like, okay, I've got a budget that does not depend on this. Because
Hmm.
over and over again, we have clients where it's going back and forth. So the arrears are 4 figures, 5 figures.
Yes.
And we also have, parents who come and say, well, everything was fine for 3 years and now it's gone. And you've built a life based on that. And so because you're used to it, you think it's always going to come. And we kind of feel like, no, you have to treat that as extra. You have to put it off to the side for those special needs, for the tutors and the other educational pieces, the private schools, the charter schools, whatever, that the other side is not paying anything for. That's the way that child support can play a part. But in the court system, it's not going to play a part. It's more about, what are you doing with that money? Are you holding on to it for the schools that they're in, for the educational supplements that they need, and maybe even putting a little on the side in some sort of a college fund, account that might grow some interest? Because if they're not paying for school now, then college is going to be a real problem in the future, right?
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, right? Saving for college when facing child support challenges. When you don't rely on that child support check as a part of your budget,
Right.
then and treat it as gravy, or I mean, child support is not gravy, but treat it as something that is, you
It's
know,
not. No.
it's treated as something that is additional and not something that you're depending on,
That's
then it
right.
can go into a child savings account, or it can go into a college fund. There
Yeah.
are means and ways in which you can support. I'm just, as a person of color, I'm recognizing, my privilege also, and the fact that, I was able to do that myself. And I really had to make choices about what to maybe not do that Starbucks for $5, maybe not, make those choices that were extra expenditures. And so that I could actually budget. I love that you said that. So that I could actually budget, so that I could actually take the extra and put it towards something for my child.
Yeah, I'd
And
like to say that most parents are getting enough for child support, but when you're getting hardly anything, it's a real challenge to figure out, how do I budget without this? And then it's kind of like, well, can you just use part of it and put the other part of it in an interest bearing, even an interest bearing savings account, which gives you almost nothing back, but at
Mhm.
least it's there, it's sitting there for any educational needs that are coming in. But it's tricky, it's
It
difficult.
is.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
do, I want to say it's kind of interesting because there are some states where even as a child emancipates at age 18, 19, depending on the state or province, that there are some states that make it so that college funds actually extend beyond that. So there is a requirement to help pay for college in some state. New Jersey is one such state where there is an
Mhm.
expectation that even though the child has emancipated, that the other party, both parties, are responsible for, and then you can bring college funds, college tuition to the court system. And so I would invite everyone to check your province, check your state, and see if you happen to live somewhere where the state does support that, because nobody's really advertising it. So look for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Part of the strategy to sort of have that forward thinking, right? To have that forward thinking, because the child is not going to stay little forever. They do grow up and they become adults and have needs as adults too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some resources? We've talked about this as far as when it comes to money and protective parents really leaning into their support and their community. But what are some ways in which, if there are arrears, or if there are something that happens,
Mm.
what can they do?
Uh, if there are arrears, then you'd want to go to the agency that's garnishing the money. And if you don't have child support coming through a child support agency, a garnishment agency, change things so that it is. because if the money isn't coming in, because you guys agreed you wouldn't do it that way, which many moms, just to, get it done and over with and that type of thing, they get lulled into. I've seen a lot of these abusive co-parents basically, all of a sudden all the checks are coming in regularly, right, all the way up until they mediate, and the abuser's kind of like, well, I guess we don't need to go through an agency. I'm happy to keep writing these checks. And then as soon as, the mediation, the agreement is signed, the checks peter out, or they stop right away. And,
Right.
you've agreed to not use an agency. So I'm always a big fan of telling parents, go back if you didn't do that. If you're still in your custody case at a point where you can request it, do absolutely request it, because if they're kind of like, well, that'll create problems, then the argument back should be, I know it's like setting up a new account. Every time I have to set up a new account, it's a little bit of trouble, but then it makes things so much easier later, right? Try to be collaborative and sound lovely as you. I love the yes but no formula. It's like, yeah, I totally get it. Yes, I totally get it, but no, we're using the agency, right? So you sound lovely the whole time. And that's one major thing. Lately I've been a big fan of Christine Lucan's book. I'd spoken with her at length. We had her on a show a while back, and I'll be honest with you, out of all the people who we've talked to, I do find myself recommending her book quite a bit, Financial Dignity After Divorce. She has a couple chapters on where they're hiding the money for people who are still, in their custody battle before the finance piece. But there's also a lot of conversation and a lot of resources and discussion about how to live your life. And honestly, a lot of these moms find far more abundance a few years after they've finally finished things off with their ex in court than they had when they were with, their financially abusive, usually co-parent.
That's great. Great tip. So when it also comes to considering financial considerations of custody,
Mm-hmm.
what else is there that, maybe moms, protective moms, or our audience really don't know about, but should know about? Like, for instance,
Yeah.
when you can even negotiate support.
Yeah. Well, you can always stipulate, right? We've talked a little bit about stipulating in a past episode, and so I think how I feel about stipulating at the courtroom when you were supposed to be heard and your evidence was supposed to be seen. And I'm always going to be against that, but almost always, obviously, depends on the case, but 95% of the time, I'm going to be against that. But I think if you can always mediate the money. But when you're mediating the money, and this is where I think a lot of protective parents get stuck, it needs to be that, unlike several other things that you mediate, you don't have to give as much latitude on this, because it's the easiest thing in the world to go into court and say, I just want to set up child support, because there is a formula for every state. There's a formula for every area that basically says, this is what he's earning, this is what you're earning, this is what the support is. And so I don't know that I can't remember the last time I saw somebody mediate or negotiate as much support as they would have gotten had they gone to court. Now, if in negotiating support, you're feeling lenient, or you're considering it perhaps a bit of leverage, and I don't say that in a sinister way, but where if money is that much more important to the other parent, and decision making for the children is more important for you, then I think that, yeah, I would want to mediate. I would want to say, fine, I'll take less if it means that you'll agree that this is how we'll handle raising the children. This is what we'll do with life insurance. This is what we'll do with this. This is what we'll do with that. And I think it's important to know that custody and child support are kept separate. It's even bifurcated in a lot of, family court systems, where you can basically separate, get the divorce and the money stuff done first and then focus on custody, or vice versa, so that they're not mixed if you're doing that in court. But I think it's so important to know that the money can be quite cut and dried. And what you really need to think about is, what is it that you're looking for here? How can you use this as something where you can say, let's discuss how much I need in order for the kids to be okay. And would you be cool about this, that, or the other thing? So it really is about thinking about the fact that instead of thinking of it as leverage, if you must, then you can think about it as let's just find a common ground. Which is, not easy in a mediation with a narcissistic abuser. I'm not going to lie. I don't know many mediations. Some do, but it's a small percentage of mediations that end up with an agreement. And then the final thing I'll say is that sometimes if you get somebody you really do want to mediate, and you get somebody who's refusing to pay the amount of child support that if you took him to court, you would get, then what I talk to moms who are all kind of like, I actually don't need all that money. I would need this. Then what you can do is you can get at the heart of why they're resisting the child support and mediation. And a lot of times what we find, this is something I love to suggest to moms, is tell them, fine, you want to pay me, $500 a month. The court says it should be $1,200 a month. Let's do this. I'll take the $500 a month. The other $700 a month, you're putting in a college fund with both of our names on it. Neither one of us can remove it. Only the children can take the money out. But I do get the statements every month to make sure that you're holding true to it. Otherwise, I get to take you to court and you get penalized. A lot of parents are all kind of like, well, if I'm not giving the money directly to you because I'm so mad at you and I want to punish you, and I get to play the hero by being the one to have the college funds for them to go where they go, then I'm definitely going to go for that. So that's the strategy that I like to use with a lot of clients.
Yeah, what comes up for me, and I know we're wrapping up here, is, the difficulty that is in being that most of our protective parents are the primary caregivers anyways,
Yeah.
but presenting it in a way that you're sort of in the passenger seat, and how difficult that is to be in. Like, for instance, when you're saying, they get to look like the hero at $700 in the college, checking account and so forth. And having to just sort of accept that they get to look like the hero
Yeah.
and let that go. And the parts that really have a hard time with the narcissistic parent having what looks like a win, even if it's a win that you set up.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it's a win that you set up,
Yeah.
they get to take the W.
100%. If you can live with it, make it happen to move forward.
Yeah. And so I just want to name parts that feel, what comes up in people's systems about that? What sort of, what do they notice when just even the thought about that? Can I live with them taking a win that I even set up for them for the better interest of our child? And I think that finding a way to yes, like you're saying, is the
Yes.
best option. Yeah. Well, I think that's all we have for this week's episode of Courageous Custody, Renee. But before we go, thank you so much for joining us, everyone, whether live or on replay. We're so grateful to have helped in any way we may have. So we've got some great takeaways, Renee. Will you go over our takeaways today?
Yeah, the first is that child support and education are usually treated separately. Child support doesn't really much go into education. When you are looking to get money for education, you're probably going to have to file a motion. But remember that if one parent does not agree to tuition, chances are you're not going to get tuition from them. And make sure that you're getting that child support garnished. Go through your state or province's agency so that that money is automatically removed from them and put into your account so that nobody has to interact with anybody. The money is just moved.
Wonderful. Well, next week, join us again, 7 p.m. Eastern here. Like or follow, bookmark us so you can get the notifications so you don't miss anything, because what we're talking about might just catch you right when you need it.
And don't forget to check the comments to get a free copy of the court appearance prep list. Yay. And you can go to thecustodyblueprint.com to learn about the different ways to get help in your case.
And we'd love for you to leave your own comments about your experience with this topic. And, any topics that you want us to discuss, we'd love to hear from you. So in the future, so let us know. And if you want to connect with me, and maybe map your parts, you can reach me at www.atratarfa.com. Wherever you are listening, remember, you're not alone. Until next week, stay strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for what matters most.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.